We are diving into Handmaid's Tale Season 6, the finale. Welcome to Screens in Focus, the podcast where we talk about TV and movies. I'm Diana. Jenn is here. I'm so excited. She is the host of Salad with a Side of Fries podcast. She's also a friend of Screens in Focus and of mine. She's a TV lover. Jenn, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Diana, first of all, I feel like it's been way too long since we've done this. And I always love a fellow TV junkie friend, so.
I know. It's interesting. I went back to listen to the podcast we did on Handmaid's Tale. And so we had done season 4 and season 5. And I was listening to season 4 and it was from 2021.
Oh my goodness. So much time.
I know.
Oh, I love
But it was fun.
Yeah.
I had forgotten some of the things that had happened there.
I know.
So it was nice to remember. I brought up Emily's name and just so many of the pivotal moments that have happened during all the seasons. So I was glad I was able to revisit that a little bit. And if anybody wants to go back and listen to those, they exist with Jenn and me. And so this is not going to be a recap of any of those seasons or of this season. We're just going to kind of dig in to everything that has happened here.
To the ending of a show, to the ending. I mean, it's like, I was going to say end of an era, but it's not. Not the same way like Grey's would be the end of an era, you know?
Yeah. So The Handmaid's Tale gave us rebellion. It gave us sacrifice. It gave us reunions and just a full circle ending. And we're going to be talking about Lawrence's big choice, Nick's fate, June and Luke's bond, Serena's future. And we're also going to talk about Hannah and the Testaments because that's important.
What's up
too.
next?
Just a peek into it. So I really felt it was important to start with the penultimate episode, which was huge, and Lawrence's actions there. And he's such a complex character from day one. And you never really knew if you could trust him, not trust him. He did, but I always wanted to. So I want to hear what you have to say about him. And also, it felt like he finally chose a side. He died for it.
Well,
so
what side do you feel like he chose that he died for it? I mean, he died no matter which side. Like, to me, he chose the rebellion.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And to me, he died to ensure its success.
Yes.
Because if he attempted to get off that plane, it was going to end up being suspicious. It was going to delay things. It was going to cause disruption. His actions were ensuring the success of the mission that he was put on for Mayday.
Right. But did you ever think that he would give his life for that choice? Because going back and watching the previous even season, it was hard to tell where he was. I mean, you felt he was helping the rebellion so much of the time because he was helping June and other people. But that's why I said he's a complicated character. It's hard to know.
Yeah, and I think he also really believed in this third concept, right? Bethlehem. I think he really believed in that, which was somewhere in the middle between Mayday and Gilead. But it also occurred to me, I noticed when he was leaving and he had, his daughter, and his new wife. Why can I not think of her name?
Well, her real name is Ever. Her real name right now, too.
But when he had a conversation with her about, reading to their little girl.
Yes.
There was something in that struck me, in that moment. And then after watching the finale, I also kind of felt like that was him getting on that plane was also his way of getting this kid back to Janine. Right? Because wasn't that Janine's daughter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there was a piece of him that like in whatever, maybe they don't have a will or, like documents, but in some, like I felt like he also knew that that's what would happen. No.
Yeah, I also feel like he was doing it for his wife.
Yes.
Because he loved it. I'm talking about not his living wife.
First wife.
Yeah, his first wife, the person that he really loved. And, it was interesting going back to the earlier episodes, even in this season and previous seasons. I really didn't remember, or it wasn't at the forefront of my brain, that he really wasn't religious. That wasn't his motivation at all.
Right.
Which was so interesting. So I think that's why it was easier for him to see what the rebellion was trying to do and to be on their side, because he was doing things out of just surviving, for him to survive and what he thought was the right path. And like you said, with Bethlehem, it was sort of the middle of the road, but then he ultimately helped the rebellion.
Right.
And so I think, oh my gosh, that moment when he walked onto the plane
and sat down.
Or before that, when he looked over to her, and he touches his heart and looks at her. Oh my gosh, that was such a
chills
good moment.
even as you're saying it.
Yeah, because it was like, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to die. I'm dying here, and I'm scared shitless, but I'm still doing this. And I love that.
And it was
June tells him. I love that June tells him, or what did she say? Courage, or whatever looks good on you. What did she say? Bravery looks good on you.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, that's a good line, And then as I was rewatching this episode, when Nick sits down next to him on the plane, Nick says to Lawrence, basically like, oh, so you decided to stick with us or whatever. Like, I something like that.
For the winners.
Yeah.
The winners.
Yeah.
Join the winners.
Or he was like, you're abandoning Bethlehem or your mission or whatever it was, your plans. And Lawrence says, someone better than I will be able to see them through. And I think it's also a piece of him recognizing that, like, he set enough in motion. He gave his idea, like, he wasn't the necessary piece of that puzzle. And then I can't remember what Nick says. And then Lawrence says, can't keep a good woman down. And I was like,
I love that.
And then they have more conversation or whatever. And then Lawrence tells Nick he should have listened to June.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh. Like, well, I know we'll talk more about Nick in a second, but I totally thought that, like, his wife and the baby was going to keep him from that plane.
I know. It was shocking. You're like, wait, what's going to happen? And you see June's face, and then you see that plane take off, and then she follows it out, and then you see the lights out and, it exploding. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine the feeling that she had as one that, our plan came together, but here Lawrence is dying, and here Nick, the father
and
of
everyone
one of my children
who helped her, right? Like the people that she leaned on to help make this happen, caught in the crossfire seems like the wrong thing to say, but kinda.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
That was such a huge moment. So huge. It was such a good episode. I loved it.
I sort of thought that episode was the finale.
I know. That's what you said.
I think I said to you, I was like, wait, there's another one? I was like, oh, okay. Like, because the episode before, when it ended with Look What You Made Me Do by Taylor Swift, I was like, it could have ended there. And then it could have ended with this plane blowing up. And then, it was like, wait, there's more? Wait, there's more?
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Okay, we're going to get into Nick right now, so we might as well just do that.
Let's just do it.
Let's just get into Nick, because what I wanted to say was even that part when Wharton exposes what happened at Jezebel, and Nick and June are in the closet hearing it, and she hears what he has done. So in putting that out there, let's just dive into Nick, his death, and his legacy with June. I have such mixed emotions about that airplane scene and just their whole relationship. But first, tell me, what did you think about what I just said about what he did or said about Jezebel and just his whole relationship with June this season?
I think what I come away with is like Nick is desperate to feel like a winner. And so in any situation, right, like when he was with June, he felt like a winner because he was helping her. He was doing something, right? Like he felt needed and that was important to him, you know? And then I think with Gilead, to go from being an eye to becoming a commander and then sort of marrying into this to some degree, like royal family of sorts, right? Like I think Nick wants to feel important and powerful. And he will do whatever that is. And I think, you know, like, yes, when it comes to June, he would do anything for her. Like, I think he also realizes that, like, she was critical for his survival of those early years, I guess, is, you know, I don't really know how else to describe it. But I think I was personally upset when he got on the plane. Like I said before, like I thought that like, you know, the current wife and the baby was going to keep him from getting on the plane. I think for June, it was hard to see him get on that plane, but she wasn't going to jeopardize the bigger mission.
Yeah. That's what I think her struggle was, because she loved him. Yes, she was mad at him, but she loved him.
Yeah.
And to think, oh my gosh, the father of my child is on that plane. Somebody I love, even though he's made me mad, is on that plane. But I can't do what he did because he jeopardized everything by saving himself with Wharton and telling, you know, Wharton about what was going to happen at Jezebel. And then all those women were killed. And she was June was so devastated by that. But it's interesting because I've heard so many feelings about Nick on this moment, because some people felt like, this is other people talking about. I'm just putting out there because I've heard so many things. So he was only on Gilead's side. The only time he would help the rebellion in any way was if it directly related to June. Like he loved her and he would help her. But if it didn't help her, then he wasn't for it.
Yes.
Some people say that, he sensed her when he was going up the stairs and that he was getting on because he knew that him thinking he was going to survive. By surviving and going with Gilead, he could still help her later on. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, I don't know, or was he just trying to escape? I don't know, like that conversation he has with his wife in the hospital. I didn't even think he really cared about her. I think he only cared about the baby is what I thought. But did she get to him by saying what she said? Like, you need to once and for all just like, you know, get rid of her. But that conversation that he had with Lawrence on the plane seemed like he was siding, because he was one-on-one. He didn't have to.
Right.
It's not like other commanders were right there in earshot that we could tell. I felt like he could have been real with Lawrence, and he didn't say.
Well, I think he was real with Lawrence when he said, like, you decided to join the winners. And so that's where I'm sort of like, and I guess I agree with those people, where unless it's June, he wants to be with what's powerful and winning, which seems to be Gilead, until it's not.
Yeah.
You know? But
there were
I don't
so
know.
many
And then
people
I think watching June as he gets on the plane and the plane takes off, I know that she she knew she couldn't do anything and she had to let him get on the plane. But I think there's also a piece of like, oh God, now I'm only left with Luke. And also everyone who helped her do everything she did blew up on that plane. Like, she lost Lawrence and Nick, which meant that she had no more inside people who were allies, true allies. And so I think there's also a piece of, how am I going to do this next thing, whatever the next thing is also a reality that I feel like, is on her face in that moment.
True, that is true, but that was such a huge thing. All those commanders, they were such high officials, so she knew that was wiping out a lot of that, and she still had Truello, even though he wasn't part of them at all, but he knew so many inner workings, and Serena too, which, okay, we're going to get to Serena. We're going to get to Luke in just a moment, because I feel like there are a few of these pieces here. Now, we're going to head into Luke.
Okay.
But I do want to say, I know in previous seasons, you and I had talked about, this triangle and how much passion she had with Nick. And you had felt like you kind of wanted, I think, if I remember correctly, you kind of wanted her to maybe follow that passion, or you just saw it. You felt it more. Maybe that's the correct thing I want to say. But I was sort of leaning toward Luke.
I feel like she and Luke just grew apart and there was no going, it feels like this mountain that they can't get over. That she had this experience that he can only sort of understand. That Nick knows every detail of. And I can appreciate that, how do you explain to someone this trauma and have them understand, that sometimes there's a connection to people who get it.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. And actually earlier seasons, I think that made sense. I think now in this, how we got here and how we got to season 6 and the relationships of where we are now is actually, I feel the way that it was unfolding to us was actually right. I feel like there's so much criticism to this season. People were not happy with a lot of things, but
really, I didn't read any of this.
Well, I just think that people just didn't like a lot of the writing of this season, and they were just nitpicking on things and just being directed, and the slow motion, so many slow motion moments, and a lot of at the finale, which we're going to get to the actual final, what happened there, and I don't want to get too far ahead. I'll bring it up then. But yeah, there was just a lot of different people saying, I think people just want maybe something to say. That it just didn't happen or unfold the way they wanted to. But what I wanted to say was, after watching this a second time, I appreciated it so much more. And I think what happened was, yes, June and Nick were so close, but I think they started to grow apart. I think that Jezebel moment started to fracture them and what she wanted and what he wanted. I think she was finally seeing maybe Nick for kind of who he was, even though she loved him, she cared about him, even though he loved her. Because I feel there could have been so many moments that he could have just said, yes, he came and told her, let's run away to Hawaii or wherever he says to run away with, but at that moment, it's too late. It's too late. You should have made that decision previous to now. And he didn't. And so with Luke, I don't think he understood a lot of what she went through right when they did reunite. But I think at this point now, while he's been in the fight and orchestrating and being the leader of different pieces, I think he is understanding more now, and he is seeing it more. So I think he
is, but I also feel like he's just resigned to, they're technically married, but they're sort of colleagues in this fight.
Yeah.
Rather than you're my ride or die. I don't know.
I think that this is so hard. What I feel is they really, they do respect each other.
Yeah.
They do love each other. I think they do. I think they love each other. Now, are they in love with each other?
Right. No.
Probably not at the moment, because that's just not a priority. It's not. Because they both are on a mission to get Hannah, but they have each their own way of getting there.
Yes.
Luke wants to get there by dominating or not controlling, but taking control of each city one at a time, because that's their plan of how to do it and how to get there. And where June is going to help Truello and figure out, how to
June's I care less about all those other things. Get me to DC where I just heard my kid is and let me get my kid out. Take down all you want. I'm going there.
Yeah.
I am singularly focused.
Yeah.
You know.
And that has been both of their mission to get back with their daughter. I mean, they wanted to be together. And I love that earlier few episodes ago in the season where they had that conversation. And they talk about, can we get through this? And they said, yeah, for Hannah. And they kind of hold hands in that one or that one moment. And even earlier on in episode 1, when I was rewatching it, there were so many times when they were on the phone and she says, I love you, I miss you. And he would respond, but it was interesting because she said it. Yeah, she said it a lot, but again, it was like, I love you because I care about you, but it's different. We have to put that all aside and just keep following through with our mission. And I do think they love each other. It's just in a different way now. It's just a different way. Will they ever be together as a traditional husband and wife? Who's to say? Who's to say when this is all over if they will just be friends?
Right. Well, so then in the season finale, they're having this conversation that both times I watched it, I was like, this is so painful to me to watch, right? But the second time I watched it, I really paid attention to like what they said.
Yeah.
So she says to him, I underestimated you.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're so different now. Like, we don't know each other like we knew each other before.
Yeah.
And I sort of felt like, oh, thank God, like words to what I've been feeling with this dynamic for so long. Yeah. Like, at least we're all just like being honest, And then he says to her, and maybe this is a little foreshadowing of what might happen with Testaments. So he says, there's going to be an after too.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think he clearly has made plans for himself that don't include her. Like, to your point, he has an idea of how this is going to go and what his role is going to be and the way to get, like you said, his way of getting Hannah versus her way of getting Hannah out.
Right. And it's both, they both want the same goal. That's why I think they'll still continue to be aligned somehow, just in different areas. They're just not going to be physically together. They're just going to continue to fight. They know that each other is going to be well and probably keep in contact. Hey, you doing good? You're doing good. And go on from there. And then when hopefully at some point, if they ever do get Hannah, hopefully they'll all reunite, even if it's just as a dynamic as father, mother, daughter, even if it's not.
I sort of picture it kind of similar to the scene in the finale at the train station where the mom comes back, with
Holly.
Thank
you.
The
mom's Holly, right?
Yeah. And with her and Luke's daughter. Or her and Nick's daughter, I mean.
Nick's daughter, yes. Nicole, which I think is really Holly, though. Like June tells her, her real name is Holly. So I think she named her after her mom. But they call her Nicole. So I'm not, I guess, because of Nick. So it's she has 2 names as far as I think. I feel
like they all have 2 names. Like,
That's true.
I don't know.
But wait, there was one more thing I wanted to say about, I loved when, there was 2 different moments I wanted to bring up with both Nick and Luke. So first I wanted to say was when Nick went and helped June get Luke and Moira out. That part was kind of like awkward because here comes Nick with June to help them. And then Luke has to look at him and go, thanks, but it's hard because he's like, you had a child with my wife and he's there to help him and he has to say thanks. So that was awkward. But later on when Nick and June are talking, when she is, upset with him for what he did to Jezebel and he says, you know who I am, I'm an I, or I was an I and I'm a commander now. You know what I do. Okay. So, and she says,
don't play dumb, basically,
Yeah. Oh, and she says something to him. I don't know if this was the moment or not, but she does tell him at some point, Luke waited for me. He waited for me. And that is something, that is like, I have to pick him because he waited for me. And that just hit me in the heart for them.
Yeah.
But then at one point also, Luke tells her when she reveals that she told Nick some things, and that's when that whole thing was jeopardized. He says, I know the way you look at him. I see it. I'm not blind. I'm like, oh my God, everybody's saying everything that is true, and everybody's revealing things. So he knows what's happening. Nick knows what's happening. It's this love sort of triangle, and that's not even the main point of
it's also
the series.
But I do think it plays into this point of what we need to survive. And I think love plays to that. We need love. We need companionship. We need people. And I do think in that final conversation between Luke and June, when he says to her, you should write all this down, he says Nick's name as these people who
that
loved you and deserve to be remembered. Like, he, as much as he annoyed me, he was the bigger person in that moment to recognize that this wasn't about him, that there's so much more, and that it is about this survival, and that every person who allowed them to get to the point that they were at and that moment, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just appreciated that.
I did too. You're so right. I love that you brought all of that up. We're going to move on to all the other people that helped June along the way and that were so supportive. But the last thing I want to say about Luke, and the reason I think that it resonates with me, is I've been married a long time. And so love and loyalty play such a part in my life. So that's why I think that
your team
I
Luke
hope for them. I love Nick though. I mean, I loved Nick. Like, I love that passion, and I always wondered how it would end. And that's why I'm thinking, wow, Nick is gone and Luke is doing his own thing. And that's the way it was supposed to be written. That's the way it was supposed to. It wasn't supposed to be either one of them right now. But
it's like with all of it, it's complicated. But I do think your piece about like the love and the loyalty and kind of where they are now, like it speaks to one of the big themes of the entire series and the book, right? Like, I remember we talked about this. Like, I remember reading the book when I was in high school and being obsessed with it. Like, I became like this Margaret Atwood junkie because of this book.
I love that. I know. When I re-listened to season 4, you brought that up, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad you brought that up now again, too.
Yeah.
So, I'll ask you about.
We'll get to the end.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about Serena, because she was such a huge character person in this whole series. It was so interesting to see the relationship. There's the train scene, there's the wedding, there's the choices that she made, and where we see her in the finale. So what did you think about all of that? What stuck out to you?
It's funny, like, she confuses me as a character, but I think it's because she is confused, right? Like, I think she is stuck between, similar to Nick, but I do that for her, it does feel more religious than with Lawrence, right? Like, there's a piece of her that believed these things until she experienced essentially what they were putting every handmaid through. And that's when I think, like, it hit her. And I think that's what was interesting to her about Bethlehem and what another reality might look like. And I think she, too, had her own idea of how to get from here to there. And so that's where, the wedding and some of these other things, it's like she thought she was going to make progress, but she was just going back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can sort of appreciate that, like, I misread this, but also, like, I'm sort of like, how dumb are you? But she believes some of those things too. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a piece of all of this that she, in her own mind, can't reconcile between what she's believed to be true and now what she's experienced. But then later with like the train and then this refugee camp and all of these things, I have felt like this is karma, right? Like this is what you did to all these other people coming back to you. And then I'm like sort of skipping ahead, but then, she and June have this conversation outside. Like Serena's supposed to board this bus for this refugee camp.
Yeah.
And she says to Twello, my fate is entirely in your hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, lady, that is what it feels like, like.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
It's like, oh, how the tables have turned, my friend, but then she and June had this conversation and she apologizes to June. And I was so glad that June didn't respond with a typical woman's response of, it's okay. Because it's not okay. Full stop.
It's not.
It's not okay. And at the same time, June forgives her. Like, June is ever the bigger person. Like, there was just something there about this whole, like, her dynamic with Serena over the years, because it was, if I recall correctly, it was Serena's idea for June to start sleeping with Nick.
Yeah, because she didn't think her husband could impregnate June. So she wanted to sneak them having sex so he could impregnate her.
And I think there's a piece of that also June is to some degree indebted to Serena for that. Because without that and without that forced connection, it's so complicated.
I know, but what a way. But okay, so yes, their relationship has been so complicated, but I have loved watching it because she's such a complicated character. And I didn't like her for so many seasons, but then you start to see moments come through that you're like, oh, maybe the light is coming through. And so through it all, we have seen June's strength through their relationship. And I really think that June was instrumental in showing Serena the way.
Yes.
Little by little, each season that we saw. And
1,000%. And when we talk about the other friends, like in a second, like to me, June is the only true friend Serena has.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she is. And in episode 1, when they are on the train, it was interesting because they're both escaping. And then they find each other on the train, and June's all, damn, I cannot get rid of you. She's still here. Like she was forced to help her give birth when they were on the road the previous season. And then here, she has to help her again because they want to lynch her, kill her, whatever it is. And she has to throw her off the train. It's like time and time again, she has saved her. And
she's also taught her what it is to be a mother. Because I also think Serena has struggled with also this desire for power and status and, all of those things. And at one point, June says to Serena, like, just be his mother. Like, that's what's important.
Yeah.
I think June gave Serena clarity in the end.
Yes. I love that. See, that's the whole point. I think that's what it is. Yeah, she gave her that clarity. And it was interesting to watch back the season and watching Serena and her faith and how much it meant to her. And I feel like Gilead used that. They used, how much she loved that. And that's, but slowly Serena's, started to figure it out. And that's why she went to Bethlehem. Oh, man. After she married Wharton and she's like so happy. And then she comes home.
And he has a handmaid.
Yeah. And he has a handmaid. And she that really, see, how Serena acted was how you would have expected other people to react. Like she stood up to him when he had so much power. And when she tells him, our marriage is an abomination, and he's like, you will, oh, baby. And she, oh my gosh, she goes against her son. I did not think that he was going to let her walk out the door. I don't even know what changed in him. She says to him, "Oh, you're not the man that I thought that you were." And he says, "No, I'm a better man." But still, the fact that he let her out the door with that guardian or that whoever that other guy was there in front of him, I thought, "Ooh, you really let her out," which was shocking, but was so good. I'm so glad he did.
Well, and then she goes to Lawrence's.
Yeah.
And this is the piece about the friendship thing that sort of really hit me, is like, now she's at Lawrence's. She knows that he is an ally in some ways, but he's still in this world like she is, right? Like they're trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
But his wife, God, can I remember her name? Now his second wife, who supposedly has been Serena's friend since the dawn of Gilead, right? Like, calls Wharton and has Wharton at the house.
I know.
When they show up. And so that's when I was like, also, this whole, again, like the theme of how do we survive? How do we make it through? And the importance of love and friendships and support and all of these things. And it was like Serena thought she maybe had friends, but the only true friend she actually had was June.
Yeah. And so, I love how you had even said earlier that June was the bigger person because she did forgive her, but also that was actually not just serving Serena, it was serving her.
Yeah.
It was serving June.
Yeah.
Because to let that go and release it and not hold that is going to help her heal.
Right.
So it was so instrumental in June's healing, and that's what I loved seeing. And also you had talked about the clarity that she had of, I think with Serena at the end, in the end, yes, she's alone. She has no one but herself and her son. And she finally realizes that her son is her blessing. That is what she always wanted. She got what she always wanted. And that's all she needs. That's all you need. And you'll figure it out the rest of the way. Because as we move into these other women that impacted June and these relationships, it's about resilience and the sisterhood that we see. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about Moira, Janine, even Aunt Lydia and her shift. What do you think about these women?
Yeah, like you said, sisterhood, and that's what it is to me, right? It is the power. Well, there's a few things. Like the sisterhood piece really struck me with Moira because the way they can be fighting 1 minute and then saving each other's lives the next, or like braiding each other's hair, or like that fight didn't even happen, is like, I think I sent my sister a reel from Instagram recently that was sort of like that, because that's what it is with sisters, like you can literally be screaming at each other and 3 minutes later having a totally normal conversation like that never happened.
Yeah.
And so that to me was her dynamic with Moira. I think June and Janine was more almost motherly, like taken care of, versus Moira, where it was, that sisterhood thing. But I think the whole piece of all of these is the importance of friendship and what that means to survival and community and not feeling alone is the only way that we survive.
Yeah. I love that moment with Moira and June when they were in that basement and they're getting ready for their plan and they're just there together, praying together, and there's Moira's all, I'm scared shitless here. Just, can you say something leadershipy or something leader-ish? I don't know how she said it, but it was so funny listening to her. But yeah, that they've all needed each other. They have supported each other. They have been there for each other. There were so many moments, even the handmaids working together when they were in unison and they just had each other's back and they walked like an army together, and just everything they did, even with Rita and baking the cakes, even with the woman who was posing as Aunt Phoebe, who ended up being an agent.
Yeah.
Just all of them, just really, just watching that sisterhood, watching that resilience that we've seen over and over again. And also, what was I going to say? Oh, Aunt Lydia. Oh, man, did she not make a turn? I mean, she also believes in her faith, but when she yelled,
is so torn. I
know.
feel bad for Lydia's inner turmoil. You know, like this
She's
poor
been
woman.
bad, though. She's
real
been bad.
But she believes that on some level that's what's right. And then she has these moments of going, this is wildly insane. And then
Janine got her that way, though, because if it
Yeah.
wasn't for Janine, I don't know if she would
Yeah.
have been on board, right? You have to see it, feel it from somewhere, just like Serena felt it from June. That's who taught her. And for Aunt Lydia, it's Janine that taught her. You know, it's like you have to have that connection and feel some way with some person. And then you finally, realize what it is and figuring out your way.
Yeah.
I loved seeing this, like we've talked to the sisterhood. And, there's not enough. There are so many movies about women and so many shows, but really at the same time, it's hard to pinpoint that many of them. And I do love seeing them. And I was thinking about other stories. Like I was thinking about Big Little Lies. I was thinking about Thelma and Louise and more currently and Just Like That. But I don't know.
Those are less to me about literal survival.
True. No, yes.
Like there's a piece of this dystopian scenario.
Yeah.
That, I probably said this and, when we talked about season 4, but like this whole show is exploring these themes that when I read this book in high school was like, God, that'll never happen. How wild to think of this world, right? And then I have no words for what has happened in the last few years.
Right, right.
And so there's a piece of this show teaching us what we need to do now that I don't know is really captured in other shows or movies that show female friendship in that way.
You're right. No, you're absolutely right. I was only touching upon those as being women and friendship and that, just that connection. But you're absolutely right about this show and about the resilience and, fighting for women and what's right. And will there be another show like this? I don't know. But of course, I'm glad that there's going to be the Testaments because it'll be really great to see that.
Yeah.
See, where it goes with a different generation. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I want to first talk about, let's just talk about June's full circle moment that we saw in the finale. What did that mean for you? What did you think about when you saw it?
So I thought it was the redeeming part of this episode. Because again, I thought that the whole thing ended the episode before. I was totally on board with that ending. And then to me, this was really what redeemed this finale. I loved the conversation with Emily. And that just like there are some female friendships where like you could go eons without speaking to someone and you pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
And that there's also trauma bonding, right? That like we've been through this thing together and no matter what, like we are connected. And now also in that conversation, Emily offered June a new perspective. Emily was able to share some thoughts with June that I don't think anyone else that June has been with, right? Like that Moira or Luke or Dwello or any of these people will say to her or have that, you know what I mean? It was like, here was someone who's been through what I have and has learned some things too. Like, it was a different kind of dynamic. So I loved that.
It is. Yeah.
I loved watching her burn the cloak. So I loved the parallel of a bed, a table, a lamp between Serena in this, hostel or wherever she was, and then the room. And essentially, like, I was brought back to the moment of reading the book. So the lines that June says when she's in that bedroom are the opening lines of The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, okay, mic drop. I see you. Like, you have redeemed yourself. But the other thing that was really interesting to me is, well, I also loved when they were standing at what used to be the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And like all of the graffiti and all the stuff that was there of people saying their names. It hits, and it hits hard. And so I appreciated that. But the thing that really struck me was June's wearing a green coat.
I did not catch that. I love that you caught that.
Well, so I should probably read the internet and see what other people think of this whole scenario. But I'm like, what do we think it means that they put her in a green coat? Because that's like the wives' color. That's you know what I mean? Like, their color.
That's interesting.
I don't know what it's supposed to mean. Is it that she's on that level now where she is in, as high as a woman can get in that world?
Right. Yeah.
Is it, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm reading into nothing.
No, I think it's very important. It means something. I'm
Googling right now as we're doing this because I want to know.
Do it.
This is the AI overview of the search results. A shift in power and a new beginning after Gilead's fall. So the green coat is reminiscent of the wives' uniforms, contrasting with the red robes of the handmaids. This symbolizes June's transition from a handmaid under the control of the regime to a figure in control leading the resistance. Then there are things that say, and so some of these are coming from Facebook, some of them are e-news, some of them are Reddit, right? So then it says, power shift. June's green coat, unlike the red handmaid's robe, she's symbolically burned earlier, indicates she is no longer a victim, but now a powerful force.
I like that one.
Green is often associated with new beginnings, suggesting a fresh start for June and her allies after the fall of Gilead. Then the green color, typically associated with domestic servants, the Marthas, in the series, could also suggest June taking on a role of care and guidance for others. Oh, the wives were a teal versus green.
Okay.
Whatever. I like the other explanations better than this Martha's cleanliness caretaking thing. For what it's worth. Exactly. I'm going to choose the other thing.
All I want to say about that finale, I didn't realize something that I learned was that they took the voiceover from the first episode and used it.
Oh, I love that.
So, and also this was directed by Elizabeth Moss. I think she did the penultimate episode too, if I'm correct. But
she's amazing.
Yeah, but they had to coordinate like how she was saying it because she was acting it, in this finale, but they were using the voiceover. That's if I believe that is correct. But either way, yes, they went back and were bringing it exactly from episode 1, how it started. And this is her telling her story. So what it is she took her mom's advice and she
Luke's.
Listened to Luke. Yeah. And Luke also supporting that idea and pushing her to do it. I did love the moment with her mom. I do want to say that really quickly. I just thought that was important to bring her mom back. Her mom had survived and just took care of her daughter. It made perfect sense. Someone who you trust to take care of your daughter and then come back and just worry about her as a daughter, but also in the end gave her great advice and is there to support her and take care of Nicole Hawley while they move on. And her telling her mom, I have to do this. I can't just do what I did and go be a parent. I need to keep because Hannah and all these other women and even Nicole slash Holly are going to experience the same thing if we don't do something. So we have to, fight the fight. And that's what we're going to do.
So I'm not going to lie. I thought that conversation was a waste of airtime.
Aw.
Until you were the one who told me that they were doing a thing on the Testaments, which I didn't know. And then once you said that, I was like, that's why they had that conversation. Because I haven't read the Testaments.
Oh, I was going to ask.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I now want to read it. But one of my predictions or things with the Testaments made that conversation with her mom poignant and critical. So then I was like, okay, now I get why that happened. If what I'm making up in my head is what happens.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we're moving into. Okay.
Sorry.
So we're moving. That's okay. I think we're moving into the Testaments now.
Okay.
Even though I don't know that much about them, all I know is that it's supposed to be 15 years in the future. Now that's the book. Okay, just the book. The series is going to only go more recent. I don't know. I've heard two conflicting things. Yes.
I mean, who knows?
It's supposed to either be a couple of years or it's supposed to be. I don't know if it picks up where it left off or it's a couple years. It's going to be one of the two. It's not going to be 15 years like it is in the book. That has me doing two thoughts. One is 15 years and Gilead is still alive. That sucks. Okay. That's my first thought. The fact that Hannah is still in this, this way is awful. But I like that they're bringing it just a few years. And Aunt Lydia is definitely a cast member. So Aunt Lydia, Hannah, and it's going to concentrate on a younger generation of handmaids.
So my prediction, and I have no idea, right? So my prediction is that Hannah is going to lead the resistance of these people who are still there. And the only person who knows that she's June's daughter is Aunt Lydia.
Ah.
And so
I would
it'll
love
be,
that.
and I'm making this up. So I've read nothing. I don't even know if there's anything out there about it. So my prediction is that there's this piece of who is this little girl who can't fall in line. And it'll be sort of this whole thing of somebody at some point is going to figure out that she's June's daughter. And then the conversation that June had with her mother in the series finale of Handmaid's Tale makes sense because it's in her blood that Hannah can't be kept captive, essentially, right? Just like June learned from her mother that you have to fight, you have to resist, you have to, all of those things. So,
yeah.
I think it's possible that Aunt Lydia is the only one who knows. And what role that, and Aunt Lydia's own turmoil connecting, right? Does Aunt Lydia become the new Lawrence in terms of,
right,
crossing these boundaries? And then I also think Serena could come back. So maybe this is where Serena's new purpose comes into play. A reason for Serena, escaping. So I don't know. I think there's a piece there. I think, Aunt Lydia becomes the bridge between Gilead and the resistance. And my hope is that they figure out what modern elements beyond the themes that Handmaid's Tale explore, like we were saying before, right? That this role of women in society and, rape and reproduction and status and what matters and who's controlling who and what and all of those kinds of choices and decisions, right? I feel like that was the Handmaid's Tale. And to me, the Testaments needs to figure out a new piece that resonates with the current moment. So is that loneliness? Is that social media? Is that mental health, right? Not to say that the same themes aren't coming through, but my hope is that they find a way for it to connect to the current moment again, but differently.
It's interesting because I could see Hannah going two different ways. So first I'm thinking, okay, you have to think that June's story is going to be out there because they're going to, in Gilead, condemn who that woman was. So will it be the talk amongst the handmaids? Oh, did you hear about June? She was this woman. Will she be viewed as
but how would they
bad
get her
person or
book? Right?
No,
like
not her book, just her
just
stories.
her story. Got it. Okay,
just
sorry.
her story in rumors and hearing things from the outside because you hear things. Or will she be revered, or will she be like a bad person? Oh, that she was a bad woman. She tried to do this and that. And will Hannah be a person who thinks that woman is great or that woman is bad? They could go either way. Or is it in Hannah's blood to be like her mother? And you're right, be that
ringleader
person, of resistance. So there's so many ways that this could go. And I love it because it could be any of those. And of course, anyone who has read the book knows where we're going here. We're just speculating at what we
Well,
we
now
think
I
it
want to
could
read the
mean.
book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Stay tuned. But also, similar to how the show has taken liberties. And I will say, I think not the only, but one of the main reasons why this worked for this many seasons is because Margaret Atwood has been involved in every season. And so where they took liberties from the book was still within reason and still within these elements. And so, to your point, it might not be exactly the book, the Testament, but I want to read it so that when it comes out, I know where it's the book and where it's not.
Yeah. Oh, you said something, and now I'm not going to remember a moment because I think I was reading some articles about the showrunners talking about a moment, and it wasn't until they talked to her that they decided to go a specific route because they knew her book was going a certain way, and they're like, oh, we can't do this, or we shouldn't do, or we'll need to do this. And now it's killing me because I cannot
as soon as we stop recording, you'll remember it.
Yeah,
so,
the moment I'm trying to remember because they did, they had like, oh, a moment, we want to follow this or be similar to what the Testaments is about. We can't like kill somebody off over here or not kill somebody off and then have them over there. So yeah, so I love that she was involved in so much of this and in guiding it. So, oh man. All right. Is there any last words about this?
There are things about the show that I think over the 6 seasons have been frustrating, but to come away from it all with the themes of how important friendship and love is to survival. It's like, to me, that's the happy book ending that you would want. And if that's what we take away from this completely dystopian, scary reality.
How do you get through such trauma and such violence? But you do it through, like the mom told June, you tell your stories for the ones that don't get their babies back and don't know where they're at. You do it so that they can survive and they do have that resilience and they do have that hope and they do have that love. And so, I think that is so many of the themes that the book and the series portray, and I love it. So it was a great 6 seasons. And Jen, I'm so glad that you talked with me about 3 of them.
Me too. I know. It's my favorite. We're going to have to find more shows to do this with.
Yeah. Exactly. We do have some TV and movie recommendations, but I do want to let everyone know out there, if you have something to say about anything that we've talked about or any of the previous seasons, be sure to leave a comment wherever you're listening or wherever you're watching. You can get to us in our show notes. It'll get you to our website at screensinfocus.com. You can get to all of our social media there. You can even call us. We do have callers leave us a message. That phone number is 669-223-8542. That's also in the show notes if you want to leave us a message about this episode or anything about this season. All right. That's a wrap of Handmaid's Tale. Such a good series. Jen, I want to know what else you're watching. What do you recommend?
Okay. I have a lot of... I felt like there was like a drought in television and then it came back, So
Yeah.
I thought Sirens was great. That's more recent. The Pit, hands down, like one of the best shows of the year. We should do one of these on The Pit. I have so many thoughts.
Oh, I have to rewatch it. We should.
Okay. 4 Seasons, remake of an
Loved
old, like,
it.
Alan Alda.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fun.
It was.
And the kind of show that also, like, it wasn't jokes. It was just reality that made you laugh,
Yeah.
So I loved it. Dying for Sex, based on a podcast that I was obsessed with the podcast. And so, did you end up watching it?
No, I want to. I haven't yet, but I'm getting there.
So I recommend to everybody, listen to the podcast and then watch the show. Your Friends and Neighbors. So good. And then also, I love a good, like, weirder than reality is The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, but the documentary. So there's like like American Family or Good American Family with Ellen Pompeo. That's like a dramatized, television show about this real story. But there is a documentary with the real people that's also on TV that you can get. I don't know if it's on Peacock but one of if you have like real TV, you can get it. Like I had to watch it through my mom's. Well, because I don't have like live TV. I only have like, Hulu, Netflix, all those.
I'll look.
But I watched it with a friend and then I finished it using my mom's TV app.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then movies, I'm not the biggest movie person, but I loved The Life List.
Yeah.
I loved
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also recently watched Conclave because, the new pope. I was like, pretend like I'm there, but
movie.
Yeah.
Movie.
It was shorter than I thought it was going to be.
Really? I don't remember now.
I don't know.
I liked it. Yeah. I love your list. I've seen everything except for Dying for Sex, which you had told me, and I am going to start that. I just haven't yet. Although it's a good timing because so many of my shows have ended. And Your Friends and Neighbors, I started watching that. I haven't watched too many episodes, so I'm going to continue with that. And then I'm curious about the documentary. So it'll be fun. But Sirens, yes. The Pit, yes. The 4 Seasons, yes. I love all that. The Life List, yes, and Conclave, yes. So I love all of those. I have just 2 things that I want to suggest people watch, and one is it just came out this week, and it's And Just Like That season 3. It's out on Max. I love the first two seasons. It's the extension of Sex in the City. Yes. So, and here we're talking about women bonding, having each other. So
that's nice.
Do like
it. Very fitting.
Yeah.
I saw also Ginny and Georgia just came back. Speaking of...
it already came back?
Yeah.
It does? Oh my gosh. I knew it was coming. I didn't realize it was back. Okay, so cool. So I can't wait to watch that one too. And then I also watched The Last Showgirl. It's on Hulu.
What's that about?
That's the one with Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis. And she is a woman who has been doing being this dancer all these years, but now the show is shutting down. And where does an aging dancer who was, put in the show because of her beauty and, what she brought and what happens to her at this point when she gave everything that she had, even the relationship with her daughter, because this was something that she needed to be seen and heard, and that was what she was giving, and now it's just discarding her.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Well, now I'm intrigued. I'm going to watch it.
So I watched it last night. So it was good. It was good. So I'm glad I got to see it. All right. That is what we have. Yes, we did our thing. But I do want to mention and say congratulations, Jen, on at least 300
Yeah.
I know it's plus, but 300 episodes of your podcast. Such an amazing accomplishment. Please share that moment and just share with our listeners what you do and what you're about.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I am such a TV junkie, so your show makes me so happy. But yes, so Salad with a Side of Fries is my podcast. We call it Wellness Without the Weirdness. And, it's nutrition and health and wellness and weight management, but like for real life. And yeah, 300 episodes was a little over a month ago, maybe. It's wild. So funny, before we logged in. So it's 300 full-length episodes. I also do these like little, we call them nutrition nuggets, like these bite-sized bonus episodes. So including all of those, it's 580.
Oh,
and
my
I'm like,
gosh.
oh my goodness.
Wow.
Oh my goodness, But I think it's just, first of all, I'm so appreciative of everybody who shows up and listens and tunes in. And to me, it's about changing lives, right? Like we all have to be in charge of our healthcare. And true healthcare is what we do every single day, not showing up to the doctor once a year. That's still important. That is early detection. But true healthcare is what we do every day. And so I'm on a mission to help you live your healthiest, happiest, best life. And so Salad with a Side of Fries is a really accessible way to be in that.
Yeah. I love it. I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy
I
for you. I
appreciate
love what
that.
you do.
Thank you.
Please, everybody, all of her information's in our show notes, but also go follow her on Instagram or wherever. I love seeing Jenn pop up on my feed all the time because you do have these nutritional nuggets and just so many things that you say that people can just take away. So thank you for all you do. I'm so grateful that we met those years ago
too.
And that we continue to be friends and that you continue to do what you do and also join me.
And likewise, I love your show. I love TV, so it's so much fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate, the shout out and all the things. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And friends out there, thank you for joining us today. We are so grateful that you joined us. We hope that we shared something with you that gave you some insight, a chuckle, some inspiration. Remember to follow Screens in Focus at screensinfocus.com and keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.